Senator Johnson.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Unlike our ranking member, I really appreciate you holding this hearing. In 2019, before the pandemic, total federal government spending was $4.4 trillion. The Wall Street Journal just reported the first 4 months of this year, we spent $2.43 trillion. Multiply that times 3, we're on a course of spending $7.3 trillion this year, 6 years later. That's a 61% increase while our population is growing 2.6%. So we need to scrutinize all this spending. Now, I thought it was interesting. I don't know how many boards you had up there, but the example after example after example of just outrageous waste and abuse of the taxpayer dollar. Now, the ranking member apparently accused you two gentlemen of you're going to be peddling conspiracy theories. That all was the truth. Do you have any idea what the ranking member is talking about, Mr. Shellenberger?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I find it somewhat ironic that one of the greatest conspiracy theories of recent times was the Russiagate collusion hoax, which was this idea that President Trump was being controlled by Putin through a sex blackmail operation. It was one of the most wild conspiracy theories ever devised, and of course, it was created by deep state operatives working on taxpayer funding. Another wild conspiracy theory, of course, Senator, was that the Hunter Biden laptop was a Russian disinformation effort. We now know that
which, by the way, the ranking member accused me when I was investigating that of soliciting, disseminating Russian disinformation on that. We're an actual Senate report. Falsely accused me of that, but go on.
Right, and of course now we know the FBI had the laptop in, I think, November or December 2019. They then got the Aspen Institute to engage in what's called pre-bunking, or a kind of brainwashing, convincing journalists and social media platforms that there would be a Russian hack and leak that fall involving Hunter Biden and Burisma. That's an illegal weaponization of the FBI, of a U.S. government contractor and grantee, Aspen Institute. These things have not been fully investigated, but we know, thanks to the Twitter files, that this was the illegal weaponization of our government agencies in order to spread a conspiracy theory in service of demanding censorship, which is what they then did when the New York Post article came out in October.
I also have to point out that I was a target of that pre-bunking campaign when both Senator Grassley and I received an unsolicited briefing by the FBI that we are targets of Russian disinformation. To this day, we have not found out who directed that briefing. So, Mr. Ruger, do you want to defend yourself from being accused of a conspiracy theorist?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a theorist. I'm an international relations theorist. I think what I said is definitely within the broad tradition of political realism that has served this country well, really focusing in on, I think, the importance of our strength and how we defend and deter against enemies, and really, I think, applying good economic analysis to aid programs and other government programs, because they need to pass a cost-benefit analysis. Too often, I think, and especially given what we talked about with the $36 trillion in debt, we're not applying good trade-off decisions in terms of how we spend our money. And I think, again, that's one of the reasons why it's really important that we focus in on this. And I applaud what President Trump is doing here, because somebody has to get a handle on this. And I think it's a good stimulant for Congress to do its own work to help support the president in making sure we're protecting taxpayer money.
So we're a very compassionate people. We are. We want to help people. We want to help combat AIDS and feed the world. Where did USAID go off the rails? I mean, it was established, I think, good purpose. I mean, even things like Radio Liberty, those types of efforts seem to make sense. But where did they go off the rails? Mr. Shellenberger, do you have a theory on that?
I mean, for me, it's this effort, the regime change effort that then resulted in this effort that really starts in around 2007, 2008. It's led by USAID. USAID creates and provides all of the initial funding. It was from the State Department originally.
So who was in charge back then?
Of USAID, I believe. Well, that was 2008. So President, I'm not sure.
So under the Bush administration,
it was under the Bush administration.
Started going off the rails. Mr. Ruger, do you have any idea? What's your theory of when the South started going south or going left?
Well, I mean, again, one question really at the beginning is how effective are these types of assistance programs, period? So you could argue that in some senses, this went off the rails from the very beginning because it opens the door to the idea that that there is potentially no limit to what could be effective for the United States if we spend that money abroad. But in fact, that isn't the case, right? There hasn't been the type of cost-benefit analysis that's needed here. So again, I think part of it is fundamental to a program where you're spending millions and billions of dollars across the globe in a way that is very difficult to achieve accountability, particularly if those within the bureaucracy are less subject to the kind of incentives that care about how this money is spent.
Thank you, Mr. Ruger. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.